way we communicate with each other has fundamentally changed with technology, and that's testing the foundation of democracy.
Taiwan's intelligence agency says China is using cognitive warfare to sow division in Taiwanese society.
We have so many tools today to voice our opinions, but can we hear each other? And can the people in power hear us? How are our leaders adapting to changing technologies like AI? One Taiwanese thought leader has been championing a solution, and it relies on, well, technology.
The digital platform is not to replace their voice, it is to amplify their voice.
We've come a long way since the days of one-way communication with broadcast media like radio and television.
I want to say a word of appreciation through the news screen.
The internet and social media are ingrained into our daily lives, and that's of course also changed the way politicians go about connecting with and running their constituencies.
Vamos a ver qué dice el internet sobre el programa México te abraza.
何かトラブルが生じたらフリーランストラブル110番これにご連絡をください。
So in old time, in the traditional way, they would just need to delicately manage their public image, right? All politicians around the world, more or less, were using social media to promote themselves. However, the tricky thing is that people expect more interactions on social media.
Conversations that used to happen somewhere like in a physical town hall are now happening in real time online. Feedback, whether that's in support or against a position, is immediate in the comment section, for example. And polarization is difficult to avoid.
I believe that, you have those extremes, right? But you also have a very large group in the middle, right? And so it's a persuasive game whose value and whose strategies can reach more people and persuade them to take the sides.
While a big part of the challenge is filtering out the trolls and the bots, after that, it becomes about how to use all of this information in a productive way. Today, there are so many technologies available to gather and analyze more data than ever before. The open data movement argues that this gives us better tools to confront the problems people care about. Open data is not just about collecting information. It starts with transparency, that you have this data, but then it's taking it a step further and making it available and legally reusable by anyone. So then it becomes about collaboration and participation. And by doing that, what we've seen happen is that third parties like startups, nonprofits, think tanks, they've come up with some creative tools to help spot problems. In Indonesia, for example, residents can use a platform called Peta Bencana to report information about floods and disasters happening in real time in their areas. This gives first responders a bigger but centralized picture of how to coordinate aid. In Bangkok, the city government itself has set up an app for residents to report issues from a fallen tree blocking the road to trash not being collected, and show progress on solving that issue in real time. But what about the problems that don't have a clear fix? Take, for instance, Australia and its climate war that's in deadlock, debating between nuclear and renewable energy. Well, several countries with these kinds of polarizing issues have turned to Taiwan for inspiration, and in particular, the ideas of one person.
Our next guest is an expert in this field, Audrey Tang.
This week we have a very special show because we are going to talk to Audrey Tang.
I'm honored to welcome Audrey Tang with me today.
A child prodigy turned hacker and then Taiwan's first digital minister, Audrey Tang is a household name in the world of tech policy. She's also made history as Taiwan's first non-binary cabinet minister. Tang has pushed for the use of technology to help mom and pop stores like this noodle shop to make processes more efficient.
这个就是数位转型最重要的第一步。
And used humor to combat online disinformation, like with this meme in 2020 featuring the premier at the time to calm panic buying of toilet paper during the pandemic. Tang is a role model in many ways, but in particular, she's known globally for her philosophy that tech can be used to bring people closer to consensus rather than away from it. I had the chance to sit down with Tang, who's now a cyber ambassador, and we discussed how Taiwan became globally recognized as a digital democracy.
In Taiwan, we have this idea that broadband is a human right. So no matter how high you are up at the Jade Mountain, Yushan, or in the rural islands, even with the subsea cables being cut, you're still guaranteed broadband internet connection. And that means that when we make digital democracy a reality, we're not leaving anyone behind.
Some people may think digital democracy means online voting, but that's just a small part of it. Essentially, it's all about using digital tools to enhance citizen engagement and conversation, which is then reflected in government action. Now, that can look like crowdsourced platforms like the examples you saw earlier, or more dynamic online petitions and feedback forums where people can discuss and share their ideas. Getting people involved is crucial because the truth is, the government does not always have the answer, especially in dealing with new and evolving aspects of modern life.
There could be like many competent authorities, but none of them have faced a emerging innovation in the shape of Uber. The same can be said for deepfakes online, right? It is a new phenomenon for all the competent authorities.
Governments are not pre-wired to deal with nuanced crises like the COVID-19 pandemic, for example.
I don't think there is a kind of face-saving problem because we just admit that nobody actually pre-planned any response. Only the people closest to the pain can offer the perspective, their own feelings, and being closest to the pain point, they have the vantage point of offering some of the first tried and true pieces of the puzzle to complete the solution together.
This idea of tapping into community wisdom and finding consensus within it is the foundation for what became the Taiwan model of digital democracy. That started with a civic tech community called GovZero back in the early 2010s, at a pivotal time in Taiwan's young democratic society. The Sunflower Movement in 2014 saw hundreds of thousands of people come out in solidarity with student protesters who feared that the government's newly proposed trade deal with China would jeopardize Taiwanese sovereignty.
I was part of the team that provided the live streaming of the conversation to online. So that model, this hybrid online-offline model, became a defining characteristics of the Sunflower Movement.
By broadcasting what was going on in the legislature online, people who weren't physically there could still chime in. And these suggestions helped shape the protesters' demands. After almost a month of occupying the legislature, the contentious deal with China was dropped. Tang had played a big role in shaping GovZero, and from there, she became a sort of reverse mentor for officials on digital participation, up until when she joined the government herself. She developed platforms like vTaiwan and Join to keep bringing citizen voices into the public sector. And though, say, vTaiwan was funded by the government, it was run by volunteers with intentional designs of how people should use it.
I think one innovation in that model is that I guess there are no reply button for contributions. You cannot directly argue with others, but you can only talk to your own opinions. And I guess that model actually reduced a lot of unnecessary, fights or arguments.
The goal of these discussions is to find what Tang calls the uncommon ground. That's when people with very different ideologies can still propose ideas and agree on them.
So from conflict to co-creation through uncommon ground, that's the Taiwan model.
This later also proved to be useful when Uber entered the Taiwan market. The ride-hailing app was a divisive issue in 2016 and 17. It was found to be operating in the country illegally and had caused a rift with career taxi drivers.
他们对我们的冲击是，他们不用考试，不用牌照，不用证照。
台湾政府应该着重的在于是让我们所谓的计程车司机，也就是俗称的小黄，让他们提升他们的服务品质。
And while the government was finding a way to regulate Uber, the conversation was brought onto Taiwan. There, people essentially hashed it out online, with the system as a moderator.
We use machine learning to show not just the division, but what are the bridging statements. For example, people say surge pricing is fine, but undercutting existing meters is not fine, right? So these nuanced ideas become the uncommon ground that all sides can agree on.
The government ended up passing an agreement that closely aligned with the suggestions made on Taiwan. That included mandating Uber drivers to use cars from licensed rental car companies. But in return, Uber could go farther distances, for example, into more rural areas. In Taiwan, deliberative democracy platforms have led to decisive government action in at least 20 cases.
The idea of constant, always-on citizen engagement and deliberation, delivering an uptick, and a significant uptick in trust in government, is something that you can't ignore.
This is Peter Lewis. He's the founder of the Centre of the Public Square in Australia under the public policy think tank Per Capita. His center focuses on building better platforms for people to discuss the things that impact daily life. He's also the host of the Burning Platforms podcast, which has also had Tang on for a conversation.
When Audrey travelled to both our national capital, Canberra, but also to see leaders in some of our states, there was an appetite not just to think about the idea, but the how to do it.
Tang's Taiwan model has gained international attention, but ultimately the adoption of platforms like Taiwan is still quite limited.
A lot of people's idea of being a citizen is voting in our country once every 3 years. But what would an always-on notion of democracy look like, where people feel that it's not just waiting for the big inflection points? Business as usual is always the biggest barrier. So to change that around requires either a crisis or a real opportunity.
Like any experiment, a good test for an idea like the Taiwan model is to see if it can be replicated. And that's what's happening now in California. In 2023, California Governor Gavin Newsom met with Audrey Tang to discuss getting the state government to work better together with the people. After a couple of years of development, the state was ready to launch a tool inspired by the Taiwan model, where officials could run deliberations on different topics.
So the whole idea of this platform is to create additional opportunities for you to directly engage.
We were just in the process of figuring out what do people care about, what does the departments care about, and then the wildfire happened.
24 people are now confirmed dead in the devastating wildfires in Southern California.
In January, the state saw one of its deadliest and most destructive fires in its history. Tens of thousands of people were displaced, and suddenly the state's government, local departments, the fire department, all these officials were scrambling to contain the fire, but also to get important information out there.
We recognize that, just the amount of information that is out there for people to consume, and the timeliness of information that people need to want to see is in a moment like that is the reason why this program was launched, to help.
The state's platform, called Engaged California, pivoted to focus on wildfire recovery as its first topic of deliberation. As of April, it has garnered over 7,200 subscribers. That's a start, but that's nowhere near the population of California. A major test for the platform is scale. California's population is almost double that of Taiwan's.
California is about 40 million people in population, so we're a huge state both by landmass and population. LA County is 10 million of those 4 million. Between the need to scale communication and collaboration, we really needed to bring this technology to bear.
Unlike the early days of Taiwan's model, where people had to mediate the online discussions and manually go through thousands of comments, there are language models to do that now. As of filming this video, the platform says it's in the agenda setting phase. This is when participants get a time-sensitive link to this page, where they can pick the issues they want to discuss. The next steps will be for the state's team to review the agenda and set the stage for deliberation. This demo shows what that could look like. People who've opted in would be able to explore suggested solutions, give their input, and see the stats of how many others oppose or support ideas. Whether the platform will work, though, ultimately comes down to how many people are willing to participate, and for officials to follow through. And a big part of that is trust.
The other thing that's really critical about building the trust is that we show we're listening and that we take action.
Even if folks are skeptical at beginning and say, oh my goodness, it's just another thing that's the same, I would ask, give us a chance.
So we've talked a lot about how these new tech tools can help us strengthen or even repair our democratic systems on certain issues. But it's important to realize here that the technology itself isn't really the answer. It's the philosophy behind it.
Smart people always tell me don't jump to the technology as the solution, come up with the methodology and then build something that works.
Speaking to these leaders and experts, Audrey Tang stands out because of her ideas, which aren't rooted in the details of software, but in the idea of embracing difference of opinions, finding creative ways to find consensus, and committing to doing that over and over again.
There is a question, I think, in everyone's mind whether Taiwan is a unicorn because of your particular place in the world in this moment in history. But regardless, the idea is, well, let's see, let's try.
So let me ask you, would you be willing to sign up for another account, create yet another profile, and actively engage with another app? For those with several social media accounts already, that might be difficult. But let me also ask, how satisfied are you with your experience on social media? Cory Doctorow, a Canadian-British journalist and sci-fi writer, has come up with this term, Enshitification. It describes this pattern where online platforms deteriorate in quality because it's chasing profits rather than the interests of its users. Basically, it's when apps become kind of shit and not great to use anymore.
Much like empires rise and fall, it seems so do digital platforms. One of the things that strikes me as being interesting is, can we be ready? Can we start building alternate models that at the point at which the empires fall, there are other places to go?
Today, the civic duty is to uphold the conversation networks around you. In an era where it is almost impossible to tell a bot versus a human when it comes to online anonymous discourse, the sense-making relies on us being part of an ongoing conversation with our fellow citizens and also with people abroad that still care about the same polity together.
Whatever you think about technology and social media, democracy needs new, innovative ways of engaging people, new ways to connect ideas from local communities with government policies. It's a global challenge, and Taiwan wants to be part of the solution. This has been Small Island Big Ideas. We've got more Taiwanese innovation stories that you might like. If you want to learn more about Audrey Tang, check out her show, InnoMinds. And if you haven't already, watch the first episode of Small Island Big Ideas, where we follow Taiwan's first mission to the moon.